Conservation is at the heart of what Gary Young wanted in his company, and that goes beyond just sustainable business practices and recyclable packaging, although we believe in that too. The Skyrider Wilderness Ranch is a part of Young Living dedicated to helping our planet, and we recently got a chance to participate in a unique animal rescue project. Hello and welcome to Young Living's podcast, The Wild Drop. My name is Jacob Young, your host. Young Living is the world leader in producing and distributing premium essential oils. And this podcast will provide you with drops of information about Young Living, including stories, history, product information, lots of little fun facts, and even more. Please welcome back to the podcast, Skyler Olson, our general manager of the Skyrider Wilderness Ranch. Welcome back, Skyler.
Well, thanks, Jacob.
It's been exactly a year since we last had you on the podcast, and I'm sure a lot has happened in a year on the farm, on the ranch.
It has, yeah. It's always changing. It's always growing and building, and I'm just now back to just about full use of my arm from the horse wreck about a month ago, so I'm starting to feel like a somewhat valuable asset to the team again because I have two arms, 1.5 right now, I guess.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So the reason why we have you on the podcast today, obviously it's in the title, is this Bighorn sheep project that we just, I guess, completed in a sense, or just started, I guess. So talk about the process and how it started and why we're doing it.
Yeah, sure. So at this point, we're probably 5 years from the first conversations to actually having Bighorn sheep at Skyrider. It's a very important and critical moment in time for Bighorn sheep for this to happen. So do you want me to just go through start to finish? Okay.
Please.
So when Gary bought Skyrider, it was an operating elk farm, essentially. Mm-hmm. And Skyrider is 17,000 acres. There is 1,800 acres behind the lodge. It's like rough and rugged, mountainous terrain. And we had talked about maybe getting out of farming elk. So as those talks kind of progressed, the state had heard, because I work with them weekly. Biologists, I work with biologists weekly. Elk farms are pretty heavily regulated by the state of Utah. So I work with the representatives there, like Phil Crowther, stud guy that kind of helped with this thing. And he had heard, hey, I think you guys are talking about maybe at least scaling back what you're doing there. I said, yeah, we are. He's like, well, there's an opportunity. The state's been looking for a place to have what's called a nursery herd for Bighorn sheep. Would you be interested in it? I'm like, man, well, I am. And I don't have any reason to believe anybody else within this company wouldn't be as well. So we take that information that, hey, there's this chance to do this. Go to you. We go to the company. Are you open to this? The company says, Young Living says, yes, I think that sounds like a great project for conservation, which it is. And then the ball starts rolling. So about, 3 weeks ago, we turned the first herd of desert bighorn sheep onto the Skyrider Ranch into the previous elk facility.
Yeah.
And they're there living, and it's an amazing project. It's very important for the establishment, conservation, for the continued existence of bighorn sheep in the state of Utah and surrounding states.
So with this bighorn sheep, with it being a nursery for bighorn sheep, is there an issue to the bighorn sheep? Are they close to facing extinction? Is there something going on there? Why was the government specifically looking at helping bighorn sheep?
Sure. Yeah, they're not endangered, and they're not listed as threatened, but we're like walking on fine line of that, predominantly from disease. So there are diseases that domesticated sheep carry that are pretty well 100% fatal to bighorn sheep.
Oh, wow. So just like chronic wasting disease in elk.
It's similar, but it's a respiratory disease. It's very contagious. And what's interesting about it is if a bighorn sheep contracts it, let's say a pregnant ewe, female bighorn sheep contracts MOVI or some of the other respiratory illnesses that affect bighorn sheep, if they get through it, that ewe will have some small immunity, but she does not pass it to her offspring. So she could then give her offspring the same disease, and it will not have any immunity.
Wow.
Right? So what's really interesting, like in the state of Utah and in other surrounding states, when the early pioneers came out, they would write in their journals when they saw a mule deer. The mule deer was the oddity. Mm-hmm. Bighorn sheep were the norm.
Interesting.
Right? So you'd see so many bighorn sheep, it was nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
But if you saw a mule deer, even a mule deer doe, you'd be like, we saw a mule deer doe today.
And it's completely opposite.
It's completely
now.
opposite now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the numbers are very low. And we were able to, I say we, I talk about we as the group, the state of Utah was able to secure sheep from Nevada's Muddy Mountains at the Valley of Fire.
Yep.
Remote. And it's believed that that's possibly the last disease-free herd of desert bighorn sheep in the world.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Like we needed to do something quickly. So they get an agreement with Nevada that they're going to let the state of Utah have these sheep. And we go out there and capture them, and we bring them to Skyrider, where they're doing great. We're doing a lot of habitat projects we can talk about later to improve it. But the important thing here is, without a project like this, we might not, like my kids might not be able to go somewhere and see a desert bighorn sheep, right? So we've worked with a lot of groups. The state of Utah is obviously a major partner in this, but there's also a group called Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife that has been crucial in all of this, and they continue to be that with our habitat restoration projects. Also, the Utah chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation. So without those three entities, none of this would have been possible. Plus Young Living, right? Like we're a big piece of it too, but without all of us, this couldn't have come together.
Oh, yeah. It's never just one group or one person. It's many, many people, many, many groups, many entities. So that's awesome and super exciting. So since working with bighorn sheep, what's something that you've noticed about them that most people wouldn't know about bighorn sheep? What's like fun facts about them?
Yeah. So I've learned a lot of this about bighorn sheep through this process because I've always appreciated them. I knew there was an issue there with their numbers being really low. It's something that I've always dreamed of doing, is going to the Northwest Territories and seeing like a doll sheep or a stone sheep, because there's several different subspecies: stone sheep, doll sheep, Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, desert Cali sheep, and desert sheep. Like there's these different variations, kind of like mule deer and white-tailed deer-ish, I'll say. So I've always been appreciative of the animal, because when you see one and where they live, there's not many more things that are iconic and a representation of wild places than like a bighorn sheep.
They're just in the most absurd places you can think of.
Crazy places.
And you'd never expect them to be there, like on this rock cliffside with this tiny little rock sticking out, and they're just perching on that one little rock. Yeah, it's
and living.
Nuts. Yeah,
like
thriving.
Where we got these desert sheep in the Valley of Fire, this was a month ago, so it would have been June, first part of June, I believe. And we left at 4 a.m. to start the process. And I go get my truck at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's 88 degrees. So for us, that's
disgusting.
Like our highs.
Yeah.
Right? And you get out there, and it looks like the surface of the moon. It's red rock. There's no grass. And you're looking at this landscape like, how does a lizard make a living out here, let alone like a sheep, a bighorn sheep. So they're incredible creatures. There's studies that show a desert sheep can go up to maybe 3 months without actually drinking water. They're pulling enough water from the vegetation that they're eating that it gives them enough water.
Which is crazy to think, because there can't be that much water in that vegetation with where they're living if it's just dry as all can be.
Well, you should see them at Skyrider. Like, their bellies are full. Like, there's so much feed there.
They're pigging out.
Oh, yeah, they're doing great. They're doing great, yeah. Yeah, they're doing very well up there. There's just so much feed compared to where they come from. So it's well suited. And when we let them out, we talked about their proclivity to go to the highest places,
back in the aspens,
back in the rough country, like they're attracted to that. And that's where they went within 6 hours.
Yeah.
They went all the way back to those huge cliffs, the big cliffs in the back.
Yeah.
They were there in like no time. It's just like they knew that was the place to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really like how you describe Nevada and how it almost looks like the surface of the moon. So take me back there really quick and kind of explain more of that process? Obviously, you probably had to work with the state of Nevada as well in order to capture the bighorn sheep. And what was the capturing process like? Because I'm sure a lot of people are like, so how do you capture a bighorn sheep?
Yeah. Oh, dude, it was so cool. It was such a cool thing to be a part of. So we caravanned down outside of Mesquite, close to Lake Havasu. It's called the Valley of Fire. And it looks like a Valley of Fire.
I've been through it. It's super pretty, super cool.
It's really pretty.
All those little rocks and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah, so that's where it is. And we had a hotel that like the state of Nevada had some places, people there, and Utah had some people there. So there was like all these government trucks. You know, you could tell like, well, what's going on here? Right? Something's happening. We get up at 4:30 in the morning, and we go out in the parking lot. The sun's not even up yet. And there's probably 40 of us. And we just have like this round table discussion. This is how it's going to go. This is where you need to park. This is where we're going to put the vet tent. Like we're going through all this pre-planning.
Yeah.
And then we just caravan out. And I think I have a video of my phone of just these tail lights because there's probably 25 or 30 trucks.
Jeez.
You know, headed out there, support vehicles, trailers to put the sheep in, vet supplies, like just this snake of headlights winding through the Nevada desert, you know. And I've never been there before, so the sun's not up, but I'm kind of like trying to get an idea what things look like. And then the sun starts coming up, and it's just, you know, iconic red rock, desert, magnificent, stunning scenery as we start to get going. So the sun starts to come up, tents are going up, easy ups.
Yeah.
And then the vet tables are going out to put the sheep on, because when they bring the sheep in, they do a whole bunch of testing, and I'll get into that as we talk about the capture. Mm-hmm. So all this is going up and preparing and building, and then the helicopter comes, because that's how they capture them.
And that was to spot them as well, right?
And net them.
Oh. Okay.
These dudes are like incredible. It was an incredible thing to see. So then you hear, and it's like, okay, here we go. Like all this work, now it's going to happen. So they land, chat about what they're going to do. They wait till the sun was come up, and we had a fairly short time frame. It couldn't get over a certain temperature in the day for the health of the sheep and also for the performance of the helicopter.
Yeah.
You know, after a certain time, it's like it's too hot. It's going to be too hard on the animals, and it can be too hard to whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not a pilot, or, you know, I don't understand all the nuances of helicopter flying in the heat.
Yeah, there's just not enough cooling, and it has to do with like the layers in the air and whatnot. I understand it a little bit.
Probably
but
so.
Yeah, I get what they're saying. So
we're like all anxious, like, and we're like, we got 2 days to do this. So you really hope we catch the max amount of sheep the first day. So you have like you don't have as much anxiety for the second day, because we need to make sure we get enough sheep. So they get their stuff together and they take off. And watching that helicopter fly, like the amount of talent and skill that they had. I mean, the maneuvers, and they're flying, and they're like tracking sideways. And there's a dude with a net gun like hanging out of it, and they're flying and chasing these things up in the rocks, net it. They drop him off right out of the chopper. Like they get close to ground, he hops out, he bags them, puts them in like a really safe harness.
Yeah, so they don't freak themselves out.
So they don't freak out. They blindfold them, put them in a net, hook it to the chopper on a line, and here they come back.
So he's shooting like a net at these things, like a net gun.
Straight up cool net gun. Yeah, like
Batman style.
Batman style. Totally.
I love that.
Totally.
That's
and
super
there's
cool.
In one of the videos we have, they have a GoPro on him
gun?
And on the chopper.
Oh, wow.
And I'm telling you, the maneuver, it was incredible. So they were flying fast. Like, this is all fast.
Yeah.
And he comes into the landing zone where we have all the support, and the volunteers are there waiting, and they get 2 sheep. Mm-hmm. So they've netted 2. They've got 2 hanging off a line, the bottom of a chopper, and he comes in. And I'm looking, I'm like, my gosh, he's going fast. And he comes in fast. But those sheep let down with the softness of a feather drifting to the bed. You know what I mean? It was just like perfect.
Really good flying.
Perfect.
Wow.
Yeah. So he sets them down. Boom, the line detaches, and off he goes to get more. And then the vets come in. They pick him up. They take him to the table. They take their temperature, internal temperature. Mm-hmm. They try to age them. They take blood samples.
Yeah.
And which was very important, because if we have a sheep that we're going to put into the Skyrider program, we have to ensure that it's disease-free.
Yeah,
so sheep couldn't go into the enclosure until they were disease-free.
Otherwise, it's pointless.
So someone had donated the use of their private plane just to fly blood samples to the state of Washington to expedite the service. Right? That's how much support this project has, and how many people are just... It's important. We did a very important thing here with the Desert Bighorn sheep at Skyrider.
And it's so fantastic that everybody's on board to save these majestic creatures. And it's almost... I think it sets a great example for just how quickly and how supportive everyone can be when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be animal related. It can be with land, whatever it may be. So I really like that part. So
yeah, we're fortunate that we have forward-thinking groups and people that are paying attention to this.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to lose them.
So when they're on the table and you're taking on the blood test, did they apply anesthesia to kind of calm them down, or were they just there? I know with like elk, with the chutes that we had, it would kind of press their sides and pick them up.
Yeah.
And once their feet dangle, they don't really do anything.
Right.
Are the sheep kind of like that way if you lay them sideways, or how did that happen?
So I believe they did give them some type of a sedative to ensure that, because you don't want them kicking and flopping around when you're 100 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
So they would come. Yeah, they were sedated, and they would come in blindfolded too, because when you cover the eyes, that's also a calming.
Yeah, it helps.
You've seen
a
it
lot.
with horses.
Yeah.
We've done sting with horses where I've seen your dad put his Levi jacket over their face, and it just like calms it down. So a similar effect with the sheep to calm them down. Blood tests, aging, temperature, and when they get the okay that they're safe, they're healthy, at least for what we can tell without doing the blood test, then they'd be carried over to a livestock trailer that was tarped to keep the heat down.
The heat down, yeah.
And then you're just looking at these sheep. I remember the first one coming in, and I'd always seen them from a distance. I've never really been up close, and I'm looking at this thing like it's just unreal. Like, how crazy
they're
is it? They're
cool and gnarly creatures at the exact same time.
Yes. They're so incredible and beautiful, and just an iconic piece of the West.
Yeah, for sure. So now that they've got them in the trailer, how long would it take for the blood tests to be tested before you got the okay? And then did you take them from one trailer and put them in a different trailer to get transported to Skyrider, or...
That trailer went to Skyrider.
Okay.
So I left with the first group of sheep. I think there was 12 or 14 sheep captured the first day.
Okay.
And I went with the first load. So as soon as they were caught, we were done by 10:30 in the morning.
Oh, that's pretty quick.
And we just turned around and we all started driving to Skyrider. So we get to Skyrider, we park the trailer with the sheep in it inside the hay barn.
Yeah.
Because it's nice and cool. Mm-hmm. And then we wait.
Wait for the blood test.
We wait for the blood test.
What happens if the blood test came back and said, hey, this one has diseases? Would you have to unload all those sheep but that one and then send that one back, drive that one back? Or
Well, now they would have all been exposed.
Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know what the state would have done particularly, but if you had a sheep that tested positive
then the
and
whole
it just
batch
rode
is,
for 9 hours in a trailer, they're probably all been exposed, and they probably have to go back to Nevada. I don't know what the process would have been. Thankfully, we didn't have to cross that bridge.
Oh, fantastic.
But when we're waiting, the impact of a negative test is really big at this point.
Yeah.
Because they've been looking for a place for 5 years.
Yeah, and that was the only one that was disease-free that they knew of. Oh, that would have been awful.
So they finally find a place in Skyrider and Young Living that is a conservation forward thinking enough to donate this land. I get that question how much will the state pay you? They're not paying us anything.
Yeah.
Young Living has donated the use of that land to them for free.
Which is great.
It's so
Which
cool.
is what we should be doing.
It is. If you have a chance to see something good, man, especially on this level, it's so awesome that we did it, right? So we're all waiting there with bated breath, these have got to come back clean, because looking for a place, then you find a place and you get the contract signed, and there's so much has gone into it, and then you're just waiting for the yes. So we're sitting there, and it's me and some other guys from the ranch, the biologists, and we're sitting in the hay barn, and anytime one of their phones buzzes or beeps, everyone went silent.
Yeah,
what is it? It's 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 not the one we want, you know. You know, I haven't heard yet. But then we get the okay that they're clean, and we're like, right on. So we drive from the hay barn up the long road where the buffalo are, turn in above the cow pasture.
Yep.
I don't know when I can, this is just below the lodge if you haven't been there. And we back them in. And we had, you know, Sports and Fish and Wildlife is there, Utah Chapter Wild Sheep Foundation's there, KSL Outdoors is there, like several local news agencies are there. And it's this big moment.
And that video of them jumping out of the trailer and being free, that was just...
It was so cool,
fantastic.
It was so rewarding in a way that, like, because I'm someone who grew up like you with a real deep appreciation for the outdoors because of what my dad showed me. And when you are exposed to that, at any point in time, you can be exposed to it and have love for it. Mm-hmm. And it's something that has now become... I really hope my kids get to experience it. Yeah. Because you can see how fast the West is kind of getting eaten up, and it's expanding, and so many people, like it's a limited resource. So to actually be personally involved and help facilitate this, like I had my boys were with me when we kicked the sheep out. So I'm like holding them, and I'm like, I know you guys don't get this, but this is a big deal.
But when they're old enough, they'll understand.
Yeah. Well, they might be able to see
appreciate
sheep
it. Yeah.
Because of this, because of what we did. They can probably still see him, and their kids might still see him, you know. So it's an extremely selfishly rewarding a moment in time.
For sure.
Yeah.
So does the state come back and check on the sheep like every week, or are they doing it through like the monitoring systems that they have around their neck, or what all are they? What are we doing now?
Great question.
So we got them there on the ranch. So what's the next step, or are they there for 5 years? What happens?
Yeah, great question. So each sheep, when they were captured, were affixed a GPS collar. Mm-hmm. Now that collar gives updates every hour, I believe. So they can tell if the sheep hasn't moved for 3 to 4 hours, something's going on. We need to go check it. Yeah. They can also see where they're located at in the ranch at all times. So that collar will stay with them, and they're monitored all the time. We have game cameras all around where they hang out. Yeah. So they can, look. They gave me access to it. So like every morning, I'm like looking.
That's cool.
That's cool. There's good. And there's a mountain lion. And it just walked by. So you get to see the sheep and other wildlife that are there, and it's really cool. So we track them through the collars. They're looking at them all the time. We have the game cameras set up. Mm-hmm. And then the projects we're doing are really neat. So the state of Utah, Sports and Fish and Wildlife, and the Wild Sheep Foundation have put in what's called a guzzler. Okay. 3 guzzlers, I believe. Because we do have water, naturally occurring water, in the back, in where they're at.
In that small little creek.
In that small little creek. Yeah. And, it's down in the bottom. It's heavily treed. And that's not ideal for desert sheep. Like they want big areas to see. Their biggest defense from predators is their eyesight. Yeah. They have crazy eyesight. So if they're in a place that's like really brushy or tree, it's not comfortable for them.
Okay. They're completely opposite of elk, because the elk like where it's wooded and thick and where they can't be seen. And I mean their ears, like the way that they can hear is insane. So I find it funny that the sheep are completely different. They want to be up in a big open area, but it makes sense now that they sit on tall cliffs. Yeah. So
big, wide open. Yeah. So because that water's there, I mean, they use it. They'll go find it because you have to have water. Yeah. But to make it better suited for them and more natural to have them have this big open place, we've put in what's called a guzzler, and it essentially catches rainwater and has a little trough where they can come and drink out of. It takes, I believe they're 1,500 gallons. Oh, wow. But one good monsoon rains like we get right now will just about fill that thing up. So we've done that project. We have restoration projects going on in cooperation with Sports and Fish and Wildlife and the Wild Sheep Foundation and Young Living to go remove a lot of the juniper that's in there. Okay. So there's like sea of juniper in there. And what I think is really cool is juniper makes like a pretty good oil.
It does.
Right?
So is that the plan, is for us to come up and harvest it?
Maybe so.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Maybe we'll make an oil out of the
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're going to be removing these trees and this brush to help the bighorn sheep. And it's like, well, if we're going to be taking out a whole bunch of juniper, we need to distill that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the juniper probably isn't natural to their habitat if the state's wanting to remove it, correct?
Sure. So you definitely have juniper exist where wild sheep also exist. But what happens is it's a bit of a noxious weed in a way. Like juniper gets in there.
Just grows anywhere and everywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere. It sucks up a ton of water. And if you notice in stands of, these seas of juniper that we have, there's no grass under the juniper. It outcompetes everything.
Yeah.
And they also need that big wide open spaces. So it benefits us at Skyrider to remove a lot of juniper on a couple different points. It makes it better habitat for the bighorn sheep because it opens up more open space. It'll help us retain more groundwater, and it will allow more of the native grasses to come up. If you look at pictures, like I lived in southern Utah for a number of years, and there's a town called Enterprise, and there are pictures of Enterprise from the early 1900s of the hills. There's not many juniper, and you go down now, and it's just seas of juniper.
Like crazy.
It encroaches in and it eats. It just we need to be managing it, whether through letting natural fires go through and burn it up, or if we can go in, and that's what's cool about juniper is we can also harvest that and have like a really cool product out of harvesting it.
So on the last one of the episodes that we just had with Brad Chatterley, he was talking about how we have a lot of oils that are harvested naturally, wildcrafted. And juniper is one of those because it just grows like a weed. It's wildly grown. And we get calls from so many different places that say, hey, we heard that you guys like to distill juniper. Would you come and take this juniper off our hands? And that is a big hoorah for us because we love going out and doing that. I remember there was one place kind of out by Eagle Mountain, and it was some gentleman's property, and he just said, I need all this juniper gone. We pulled 4,000 juniper trees in a square acre.
Oh, jeez.
That's how much juniper was in that area. It was crazy, in just that 1 acre.
Wow.
It was unreal. So we're removing juniper to make it more habitable for them. Is there anything else that we're removing or adding in the back to make it even better for them?
Sure. So the place is selected where they're at now is pretty well suited for desert sheep.
Perfect.
What we need to do is by removing the juniper, you get the more wide open spaces and really help to return those native grasses is what we really are wanting to do. So that could be removing the juniper is a big one.
Yeah.
We have a lot of oak brush in there. Maybe we go trim up some of that oak brush.
Oak brush.
Yeah.
That stuff is terrible.
It's thick in places. So that is to give them more open spaces and to have those native grasses come back. But Skyrider itself, where they're at, is pretty well suited for them.
Perfect.
But the goal is, like right now, we have 32 sheep, I believe, but we'd like to have 150.
By a set
Maybe
time?
in the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Grow to that number. So we're getting ready for that. Like there's plenty of open space, plenty of good habitat for the ones we have now. But as we look to grow, it's like, okay, we really need to pull this sea of juniper back. Maybe we need to go cut that oak brush back. And all for open space and native grasses to kind of come back in and be great to get our groundwater.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Back.
So you talk about expanding, the group from 30 currently to 100 or 150. How many young sheep does one female sheep have? Is it 1 or 2?
I think it's probably an oddity to have 2.
Okay.
The norm is it's probably going to be 1.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there's an odd double in there.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's going to take a little bit. They don't. They're not rabbits.
Yeah, I haven't seen a little baby bighorn sheep, so I think that'd be really cool to see a little baby bighorn sheep.
Well, you'll get to see one soon.
Really?
Well, spring. Yeah,
that's
they'll be
true.
having some babies.
That's very true. That's awesome. So now that we've talked about the number that we're hoping to expand to, is there a final number that they're hoping to hit before we release them back out into the wild? Or what's the final plan? What's the end of this project?
So probably the holding capacity of where they're at is going to be around 150 animals.
Okay.
That should be no problem in that space.
Yeah, because we've had 300 back there.
300 elk.
Yeah.
Right? 300 elk back there. And sheep are certainly less consumptive on the land as a desert sheep.
They're not nearly as big.
And not nearly as big. Yeah. So when they get to that 100 mark, 120 mark, now you're talking about if there's 100 sheep in there, maybe there's 20 rams. So you have 80 ewes that are going to be lambing every year. Mm-hmm. So that's potential to maybe you relocate 60 to 80 sheep a year throughout the state and possibly the West. So once we hit that number, then we can start pulling out of that nursery herd and replenishing the West with these disease-free sheep.
But the plan is probably to keep some at the nursery just to keep populating them
120
and then replace
or so.
them?
Yep.
Okay.
Always there.
Always there. Super cool.
I mean, the idea is if this program, I've heard this from a biologist, if it lasts, let's say 32 years, if this program goes 32 years, every desert bighorn sheep in the state of Utah would trace its genetic beginnings to Skyrider. And it speaks to the fragility of the species that we're trying to protect. So it's a monumental moment for sheep and for us.
Fantastic. Well, since we talked about the bighorn sheep, there's obviously a lot of other projects that have been going on. When we talked about two really amazing products that would be coming out eventually, and those have now since come out. So the Einkorn Crunch and the beef bites. How have you enjoyed those? Is there maybe something else coming along those lines? Do we have other products that you might be able to hint to, or what else has been going on?
Well, yeah, that's a big deal for us to have the Einkorn Crunch, which is really good. I have to hide it from my kids. Like if I want any, they gobble that stuff up. It's really, really good. And we have the Wagyu beef bites that's mixed with the bison that come from Skyrider that's really, really good and a healthy snack.
And for those in the hunting community, or for those who, do any hunting, you probably know the big name Jim Shockey, who is a huge advocate for our Wagyu beef bites and Einkorn Crunch. He loves the products that we've come out with. And we just recently did a huge giveaway on the Skyrider page with him and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, and he's kind of our sponsor and go-to guy with, promoting our Wagyu beef bites and Einkorn Crunch. So I've been seeing a lot of people posting about it and talking about it. So I'm super excited and happy about that.
It's so cool, man. Yeah, if you're not following Skyrider Ranch on Instagram or Facebook, you should give it a follow so you can track what's happening with the sheep and everything they've got going on there.
And everything
Jim
else
Shockey,
that's going on the ranch.
So Jim Shockey, if you're in the world of conservation or outdoors, he's kind of a legend. He's like the man. And in high school, I had to do a report on what I wanted to be when I grew up. And all I wanted to be was a hunting guide and an outfitter. Yeah. So they give you this book, and you got to go through, and it gives you the price, the salary ranges you can make. And I'm doing my report, and hunting guide, $30,000 a year. And I'm like, that's wrong. That's not right. Like it can be more than that. Yeah. And I went to the teacher, and I said, this is wrong. She's like, no, that's we have to work on. I'm like, but you have Jim Shockey. And he makes his own clothing and he has DVDs. Like, you can actually make a living out of this. And she said, well, I think you just need to choose a different profession. Okay. So she tells me this. And then 20 years later, more than 20 or 25 years later, I'm on a Zoom call with Jim Shockey. Okay. And I got to share that story with him. And so I just told him, like, man, I got to tell you that I was told I should walk away from this. And now because of this, I get to talk to you, man. Yeah. And we just shared like a camaraderie or a moment there. And he's a really genuine, it seems to be a really just like a normal dude that appreciates all of this and really loves what we're doing for conservation at Skyrider.
Which is fantastic. And I love that he's also on board with all of that too and really promotes that because it's so crucial and important to our world. So, and it's also so crazy that because you chose to stick with that decision, that every choice that you made in your life had brought you to that moment in time.
Sure.
Which is just so fascinating to think about. So one other thing I really quickly want to share with everybody that is not as familiar, well known, is you actually had a big music artist come out and film a music video on the ranch, which has, last time I checked, it's like 4 or 5 million views right now. And everyone's asking, like, where's the ranch? Where's this beautiful, beautiful ranch? Can you talk about that and share a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. That was so much fun. Like, it was crazy how it happened because I was a fan. His name's Warren Ziders.
Yeah.
Country music artist.
Great guy.
And Tara, my wife, they messaged her on Instagram. The producer of the film was like, hey, do you ever do any music videos? She's like, yeah, we could probably accommodate you. Like, what are you thinking? He says, well, it's for Warren Zeider's new show. She's like, Warren, like, we're very aware of who this guy is, right? And it happened within like a week, like 2 weeks he was out there. And it was a great experience. And the video is beautiful.
Oh, so well done.
It's so beautiful. And it really, if people watch it, go out and watch it. It's Warren Zeider's Wild Horse. Mm-hmm. And you really get a feeling for Tabiona and the valley and the ranch. And it was fun, man. It was so cool.
Oh, so fantastic. And one last thing, this is all kind of up to date with what's been going with Skyrider. One last thing is our creative team and Skyrider was just awarded, I think it's called a video award. And this is like a cinematography award, video production, video editing award. And they don't give these out very often. So winning one of these is almost like winning the Grammy from what our creative team has been told. And it's actually a very like reserved award. So they don't really publish it or say anything about it. You get an email. So it's like a very private, exclusive award to receive. So we just got an award for that on the Loyal to the Wild video, which is such a great video. I love, love, love that video. So our creative team will be getting an award for that here soon that they said that they're going to display and show off and whatnot.
Well, they deserve it. You know, that's an amazing video.
So great.
And subsequently, if you watch the video, that's the one that hurt me that we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Skyler, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share everything that's been going on with Skyrider with you and just sharing the passion that we all have for making sure that our land is protected and safe and that our animals are protected and safe so that our children and their children have the opportunity to experience and see these animals in the wild. Thank you so much for that.
Hey, thank you. You just nailed it. I couldn't say anything more.
Appreciate it. Can't wait to have you back on the show again.
All right. Sounds good to me.
And thank you for tuning into this episode of The Wild Drop. Remember, you can listen on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or online at www.youngliving.com. Don't forget to oil up Young Living family. This is Jacob Young, dropping out. Take care.